we take you along this time as we build this B20 block for a B20 Vtec application. So it's a short block for now that has generation 3 YCP or third gen and a Speedfactory H-beam rods and ACL race bearings and thrust washers, and we will discuss on why we're doing what we're doing and piston balancing, plastiguage checking, and even ring gaps. The technical stuff on this one will be tremendous, so this will be something that's good for you and give you more ideas on making the next engine for you a better one. Okay, now this B20 was actually shipped to us because they are from a different city, and here is the block. The setup is actually it has a B16A ported head, and the B20 block is a stock bore 8489, CTR camshafts, and YCP Gen 3 pistons, and of course Skunk 2 Ultra Street manifold and a 421 header. This actually runs 13.5 seconds in the quarter mile. Their problem was the snout of the crank where the pulley is, it kind of broke or it got damaged. So they did plan to replace the crank, but they actually decided to send us the block so we would do the fitting and the assembly, and along the way you will see why that was the best choice they ever made. So let's go to the workbench now. Alright, here we are with the YCP Gen 3 pistons. We're actually using their old pistons, and because it's just, it's good and fresh, we told them we will decide if we need to change the piston rings or not. So let me check the gap later. But now we're weighing it just to be more precise. And don't worry about this. We'll have the video of piston balancing in the description below. And also we'll have the end screen of the whole playlist of shop work that we do. So you're going to check on that whenever you need this. So now they can speed this up. Most places or shops would totally insist on them and changing piston rings, just so that they can spend more. But when you think about it, the only reason this was disassembled is because they damaged the crank snout or the front of a crank. So this was actually running perfectly good. Hey, it was running 13.5. So I told them, let me check the ring gaps, and if it's still good, hey, let's assemble this our way and even better, and let's see, maybe they'll be surprised, they'll be improving the 13.5, right? We'll do a lot of detailed improvements on this. Like for example, like this, we're balancing the pistons just to be sure it's even more running smooth, or even more smooth running so that it makes more power. And yep, on the dome of number 3 piston, I forgot to write the weights, but I got it listed down on the paper. Okay, now here, something that's often not talked about, but look at this. The circlip or the piston pin lock, right? There are times, or most of the time, one side of them is rounded off and the other is flat. So the proper way of installing them is the rounded edge has to go inward near the piston pin, and the flatter one is on the outside like this. Of course, you can rely on my MS Paint drawing. Here, you can see the insides, that's where the rounded edge has to be, towards the piston pin, and the flat edge on the outside. This makes it harder for it to accidentally come off, but the install is a lot easier. That is also why removing it is kind of hard, but hey, the more chances it has to not remove itself or accidentally come off, the better, right? And that's gonna happen if you put it inverted, and sometimes if you're unlucky, you get the piston pin the circlip come off, then you start scratching your bore. And we know, we've seen blocks like that with the piston pin scraping the bore, right? So this to be safe and the proper way. Now let's head off to the engine stand and show you guys. Here we were checking the ring gaps earlier, and hey, it's 0.015 gap. So that's pretty good. Like actually that's super fresh, right? And you can see we decked the block. This way gasket sealing is gonna be really good. Alright, now let's go back to the desk. Here we are. Ooh, the Speedfactory H-beam connecting rod. Yeah, this is a true baller. It looks really good. Look, it's properly wrapped so that it won't flash rust, so it's really good. So we're gonna start assembling that a little later. And here it is, the ARP 2000 rod balls with the assembly loop. Yeah, so we're gonna stretch this later and show you guys. This is gonna be a good engine. All right. Now, let's look at the other stuff that's gonna be in the block. There's the story with this is because it's a different crank. We did check it, and we will have a link on the description below on how to inspect your crank, so you can do it at home. And that's the good thing with why it's going with race bearings, because the race bearings of the ACL is slightly looser than OEM, so that's gonna ensure us that we get good oil clearances. Alright, now let's head back to the engine stand and start installing the ACL main bearings. Make sure your block is cleaned like this. We cleaned it several times. So okay, now let's speed this up because it's gonna get too boring, alright? Don't worry, we'll also have a link on the description below about plastiguaging the crank and the rod, so so you can have a look at it when you're gonna do this. Ooh, look at that. Race bearings indeed. Okay, now let's put assembly loop. We speed this up a bit so that it doesn't get too boring. So we go with assembly loop first, and then we drop in the crank. Alright. And then later we're gonna mix it with the engine oil so it spins lighter. But we're always gonna use an assembly loop in everything that we build. So okay. Now where's the crank? Carry it. There. Alright, slowly and carefully, of course. Alright, there. Now we speed it up again as we put the thrust washers. Alright, groove side outside. Alright, because if you put that wrong, you're gonna spin the rod bearing. Right there. Okay. As we continue the time lapse, though, we see we engine oil because we have the assembly lube at the bottom. This way it mixes well and will be safe. Okay, we hand tight the main caps so it's all snug and fit before we do the step one and then the final step of the torque sequence. All right. Okay. Now let's go with the step one. All right. Step one is 18 feet-pounds torque. Okay. You can hear it click. Okay, now let's time lapse the rest. All right. And now here, step two, or final step, is 56 feet-pounds torque. Oh, you can hear the click is louder now. And yet, sometimes the engine stand moves. All right, then we'll time lapse the rest of it. All right, now we're gonna show you this. All done and secure. Look how smooth and light that spins. Oh yeah, this one is gonna be running really good and make probably even more power. So they'll be surprised if they improve their times, right? All right. Now let me show you guys something. Because these guys knew it was best to send us their block for assembly, here, we're gonna show you. Because they didn't haggle the price, remember we have this fitting made so that we can clamp a hose for the breather because the B20 is blocked or Allen plugged on that section. We decided to get them this. Yeah. So now it's an AN10 fitting to go to the catch can. It's gonna be clean, right? And look how it looks. It's gonna be really good. You're gonna plug there or tighten there this AN10 fitting. This way it goes directly to the catch can. Yep, clean, right? Now let's go to the workbench. Okay, now here we are with the Speedfactory H-beam connecting rods and the ACL race bearing. Okay, let's unpack this from the shrink wrap. Oh, it's kind of tough. Wait, there. Alright, we just get it ready so that we can install it. It's gonna be all good. There. Alright, there. Okay, now for when we install the bearings, you have to be careful and always make sure everything is clean. But this is a brand new rod, so you know it's clean. Okay, now let's time lapse so that it doesn't get too boring. Right there. And of course, the bearing tangs would always be, or would supposed to be, on the exhaust side. So always remember that. Alright, there you tap, we tap it lightly to get it apart. Alright, there, okay. Okay, now here on the YCP Gen 3 pistons, you can see here the two holes. That's the only lubrication hole for the piston pin. So when you think about it, on startup, this is gonna be bone dry. So we use assembly lube on this area to make sure it doesn't gall or wear in right away. Alright, we time lapse this because we don't want you guys to get bored and lose focus. Okay, remember the bearing tanks on the exhaust side, and remember the circlip, the curved part is on the inside, the edge is on the outside. Alright, yeah. Okay, now look at this. Let me show you. There, it's all good now, and you can see we have enough assembly lube on the piston pin. This way on startup it won't gall or scratch or you know, with friction just damage it, and you know, longevity would be extremely shortened, right? Okay, now let's do the rest of the pistons. I'll do that off camera so you don't get bored, and let's head to the block now. Okay, now, of course, we put some assembly lube on the rod journals. This way, startup will always be good. Let's go faster now. Alright. And now here, we install piston number 1. Okay, you gotta make sure the ring compressor is perpendicular or exactly flush to the deck. This way, the piston installation is gonna be easy. You have to, you know, make sure it clicks one more time, because once it's straight, you can actually tighten it more. There. Okay, let's see one more. Okay, no, just, I thought there was one more. All right, now we tap it lightly, but firmly, you know, not too light. There. That was easy, right? Okay, now we turn it for the rod caps and oil it, and then we have to lubricate the rod bolts really well, because this is brand new and it's just all dry. All right, there, just hand tight first, and let's do the rest now. Okay, piston number 2. Yep, the number 3. We do this at the same time or in sequence because they're both at bottom dead center. There. Now, carefully lubricate well the rod bolts because they're new and they're actually dry. So, yep, there. And then hand tight. Then the number 3. Lubricate well with assembly lube. I mean, with the ARP lube. Okay, there. Now, number 4. All right. Now, same thing. Now, the rod caps and ARP rod bolt assembly lube. All right, there. Now, okay, always make a habit of reading the user's manual. And here is Speedfactory's manual. It says here, stretch it to 0.0055 up to 0.0059 or 55 feet-pounds torque. But of course, we're gonna go with the rod bolt stretching. That's how ARP suggests it. And that's the maker of the rod bolts, right? So let's go. Okay, here we are. We zero it out on the stretch gauge, all right, and tighten it to 55. And look, it's inadequate. And you don't have to go overly tight on this. Just loosen it and repeat with the lubricant, with the ARP lube. There, it's getting closer. So this is what you do. You don't go extra tight. You just follow the 55 feet-pounds torque, and of course, lubricate enough. And look, on the third try, we got it. 0.0055. Yep. Okay. The unfortunate part on this is that you have to do this to every single rod bolt. So that's 8, which is fine. You know, if you're wanting insurance and durability, this is the way. And you can see we substantially used a lot of ARP lube on the rod bolts. This is to get it safe, right? Okay, now let's turn it. Oh, look at that. It turns really smooth. Yep. Yeah, this is gonna make good power. So basically, we have the video on piston rings, which is gonna be in the description below, and even the rod bolt stretching or how to do that, and even plastiguaging the main and rod bearings. And actually, this is to give you guys all the information that you need into building a good block. And of course, towards the oil pump on this, we're actually gonna make a video of blueprinting an oil pump for B series and D series, so you gotta wait for that. And of course, at the end of this video, the end screen will be a playlist that you can click and watch all the good stuff.